The movie begins by showing a young boy named Stefan pulling his younger brother's teeth. The next day Stefan leaves for work. In front of the house, he is approached by a woman named Kama, then slips a gun to be given to someone named Ariadna. A moment that Stefan always does every time he goes to work. He will stand across the street, doing funny movements in front of his mother and younger brother who look through the window. They are very entertained by Stefan's silly behavior. On the way, behind the wall of the ghetto, there was a row of Jewish corpses that had been hanged. Arriving at work, Stefan hid his pistol among a row of wood boxes. After a few hours, German soldiers approached the place. They called Stefan to bring the boxes to the car. Stefan said he didn't understand what he was saying, until someone came and told Stefan to lift the box. The German soldier was angry to see Stefan's hateful gaze. He then asked for his identity. Stefan immediately gave it to him, until the soldier hit him hard on the cheek, because it turned out that Stefan understood German. After that, his friend gave him the gun he had managed to secure, and told Stefan to take it away from the warehouse immediately. After that, Stefan chose to resign from his job, because he would definitely be targeted by German soldiers. Then Kama talked about a plan to make new documents, so that Stefan would not be sent to a labor camp, and offered him a job in her friend's workshop. After that they went their separate ways. Kama kisses Stefan on the cheek. Kama's gesture implies that she likes Stefan. At home, Stefan's mother frets after the death of her husband on the battlefield. She becomes paranoid about Stefan's fate, afraid that her eldest son will have to go to war. The next day as usual, Stefan was doing silly things across the street. But his mother's heart was still troubled thinking about Stefan. That day Kama took Stefan to get a new job at a garage. Then Beksa came to pick him up in his jeep. On the way, they were very happy talking about their childhood, when Kama pooped in her pants. Beksa talks about his intention to join the Polish rebels. But Stefan says he just wants a job document, some peace and quiet. They arrive at the workshop and Stefan is immediately hired. After a few hours, a delivery truck with a large wooden box arrives. Stefan then saw a beautiful girl carrying a sewer rat. In the house, Stefan's mother was a little relieved to know that Stefan now had documents and a new job. Over time, Stefan began to get along with his new friends. While they were playing in the river, Ronka, who had managed to cross the river, was afraid to return to her friends. They all told Stefan to join Ronka there, until finally that place became the beginning of the introduction between Ronka and Stefan. Stefan's mother cried when she saw Stefan wearing his late father's uniform. Seeing his mother sad, Stefan reached out to invite her to dance. His mother hoped Stefan would not interfere with all the wars that were happening. Unfortunately, Stefan could not comply with his mother's wishes, so he decided to join the Polish rebels. Taking the oath in front of all the members, Stefan was accepted into the ranks of the Polish army. After that, he was taken to the home of Ronka's extended family. They welcomed Stefan's arrival, then officially got acquainted with Ronka. They had dinner, a sauna together, and swam in the river until early morning. Afterward, Stefan's mother went berserk, throwing things at Stefan. She was very afraid that the bad things that had happened to her husband would happen to Stefan again. Until finally they hugged each other, expressing their sadness. At Ronka's family home, they are preparing to leave town. In front of Stefan's house, Kama gives him the news to gather at the factory immediately. At the window, his mother keeps an eye on Stefan's activities. Shortly afterward, Ronka arrives on a bicycle, calling Kama. They soon left together. Stefan was confused. That day his mother deliberately cooked delicious food so that Stefan would not go out. Then his younger brother caught Stefan was packing equipment. He cried and begged not to leave him. Stefan's decision was made. He told his younger brother to always look after his mother. Across the street, Stefan hadn't forgotten his silly habits. But that day, his younger brother hardly smiled at his departure. Their first move was to gather at Wola, becoming a group of troops led by Lieutenant Cobra. They planned to lay siege to one of the northern buildings with Jewish prisoners inside. After that, everyone lined up and announced that a Soviet Bolshevik division was waiting on the outskirts of the capital. They would join the rebels and enter the city in a few days. The attacks began. They enter the building, walk to the stairs and are immediately greeted by bullets. They counterattacked and Beksa threw a grenade. Without orders, Stefan ran upstairs to get his gun. A soldier emerged from hiding and almost shot Stefan. He immediately ran for cover behind a table. The soldier ran away. Stefan immediately chased him and was successfully captured as a prisoner. From one of the rooms, there were dozens of Jewish prisoners released. One of them wanted to join because he had no family anymore. Goral approached Stefan to confiscate his gun. He was angry at his rash actions that did not follow the rules. Finally, the area was liberated from the German troops. They cheered in the middle of the street, celebrating their victory, dancing to music through loudspeakers that echoed throughout the city. After that, Stefan was assigned to look after the food supplies. The soldiers were now based in the cemetery area. At night, Ronka and Kama went looking for drinks. They decided to split up. Upstairs, Stefan detected the presence of German soldiers. While taking aim, from another direction he saw Ronka heading there. Stefan follows her immediately downstairs, ambushing Ronka to avoid being shot by the Germans. The other troops came to counterattack. Ronka and Stefan tried to run away, but instead kissing happened between them. After that incident, all the troops were lined up and scolded by Lieutenant Cobra for being negligent. Kama glanced jealously at Stefan and Ronka. Goral was again angry with Stefan, who had dared to leave the guard post, so he was sentenced to wash the dishes. In the cemetery area, they were playing and eating together, while Stefan continued to scrub the dishes. Then came the commander ordering all the troops to prepare for battle again, as the Germans had mobilized their forces throughout the city. Stefan is worried that the Germans are now occupying his area where he lives. Finally, the German army attacked the funeral area. Almost all the troops could not move, they were attacked completely. Stefan could only take cover behind the tombstones because he was not given a weapon. The commander was shot, then told Stefan to run away from there immediately. In the evening, in a weak condition, Stefan returned home. But the conditions there were devastated. The whereabouts of his mother and younger brother were not found. In the bleak morning, Stefan woke up. He looked out the window. His mother and younger brother were being lined up on the side of the road. His mother saw Stefan's whereabouts, giving the code to remain silent. Some residents dared to resist, until the German soldiers fired weapons at them. Stefan could not bear to witness the abomination before him, seeing his mother and younger brother die at the hands of German soldiers. Stefan was brought to the hospital in a state of shock. He was unable to say a word. All the members declared he could no longer join, so they left Stefan in the hospital. For several days, it turned out that the Germans would attack that hospital. Kama immediately reported for permission to rescue Stefan from there. There was no more time. Ronka desperately went alone to the hospital area. Stefan was lying below in a weakened condition. Ronka tried to take him away from there, until they got stuck in a deadly area. Ronka was unable to carry Stefan. She tried to leave to find a safe place, but the local residents closed the door tightly. From the front, there was a bombing of the hospital so powerful that everyone was thrown back. Then followed by chaos. The human flesh and blood of thousands of hospital patients fell. Ronka was hysterical and crying as she hugged Stefan, until they finally found safe ground. The next day the journey resumed. Ronka tried to carry Stefan through the riot. Knowing they were rebels, the captain let her pass. Ronka and Stefan crept between the barrage of weapons, then into a sewer hole. Inside, they tried to step without making a sound of water ripples. As one of them stepped forward, a bomb fell from above the sewer hole. Ronka panics, and pushes her body into the tightest spot so they can get out of the sewer hole. She walks through the city with her body covered in mud and becomes the center of attention. Ronka and Stefan are now in a shelter. Stefan cleans Ronka's body of mud, but his gaze is not fully focused. From outside, they saw Kama and the others looking happy because they had succeeded in beating back the German troops. Ronka pulls Stefan inside to hide from them. Just then Lieutenant Cobra has a wedding with his girlfriend in the middle of the street. Ronka keeps Stefan from rejoining the rebels. She hopes they can survive together in the midst of war. Stefan takes Ronka dancing. From the front, Kama is daydreaming and missing Stefan. In the middle of the night, Stefan wakes up. He cries and decides to leave Ronka. In the morning, Ronka searches for Stefan, finding that he has gone to Cherniakow with the rebels. Seeing that her badge is missing, she believes Stefan has rejoined Lieutenant Cobra's group. Ronka immediately asked the lieutenant for a license. When the letter was finished, the lieutenant kissed Ronka. Ronka panicked, she slapped him. Not accepting being slapped, the lieutenant slapped her again and told her to take off her clothes. From behind, Ronka hit him on the head until he fainted. She immediately took the letter and ran away. Once at the border, the guards had completely closed the area, so Ronka had trouble getting through. From the other side, Soviet tanks came to attack the Germans. But the Germans managed to blow up that bridge, so the Soviets couldn't cross. Everyone panicked even more, realizing they now couldn't go east. Ronka took advantage of this situation, immediately ran fast until she was in the zone of danger. With full confidence, she continued her escape. Then came the Polish troops to secure Ronka into the underground room. The situation there was very bad. Ronka chose to stay in the last corner of the room. While elsewhere, Stefan was gathering with his members again. The German prisoner continued to be angry that the Poles were stupid, doing a battle that was impossible to win. A captain came with his soldiers to Lieutenant Cobra. They were Berling's troops who would help to take Wilanowska to reach the river. Then Lieutenant Cobra ordered the troops to immediately follow him. Ronka lay down below listening to the baby's incessant whining. From outside, there was the roar of a tank followed by footsteps. Thought to be Soviet troops coming to help, they turned out to be German soldiers. Throwing grenades into the underground. The baby, who still survived, had to be carried away by Ronka. She ran as fast as she could to the hospital. When she got there, all the doctors were busy treating other patients. After being treated, it turned out that the baby had died. The conditions in the hospital were out of control. Everyone was screaming in pain, asking for help to be treated immediately. The doctors, who were only a few in number, were overwhelmed. Ronka could not bear to witness their suffering. She cried in the midst of the screams of the war wounded, until her heart was moved to help the paramedics treat all the patients. Back on the battlefield, now the troops will begin to attack. Some of Berling's soldiers went forward first to run to the far back corner. The rebels chose to take cover behind the car, while the Polish troops, as if they were on a suicide mission, continued to advance forward until they became easy targets for the German soldiers. Seeing that one person was still alive, Rogel was desperate to help him, so he was shot. While others were busy helping victims, Stefan was silent, thinking about the opportunity to take his gun. After it fell into his hands, Beksa rudely asked for his gun back. Stefan shoved Beksa. Kama was concerned about his change of attitude. The next day the rebels sneak under the aqueduct, attacking secretly. Enter the building, killing the German soldiers one by one. Stefan steps inside and finds a survivor. With a cold stare, he tells the German soldier to kill himself. Weeping, the soldier is forced to put his gun in his mouth. Full of rage, Stefan helps pull the trigger. In the hospital area, Ronka is reading a story to the children. They are for a moment at peace listening to her story. Soon a nurse orders Ronka to treat the soldiers outside. Entering a building, Ronka reunites with Stefan, who looks weak. Ronka approaches him, tending to the gunshot wound that appears to be festering. They remain silent without speaking. Stefan looks at Ronka's face full of disappointment. From behind, Kama witnesses their meeting. Ronka cried at Stefan's empty gaze. She left without a word. Ronka firmly asked the commander to immediately evacuate the children and the wounded to safety. But Ronka was immediately expelled from there, until Stefan got angry and begged to help the victims move to another building. Stefan and his other troops took everyone away. Seeing Kama having trouble carrying the victim, Ronka ran to help her. Kama expressed her hatred towards Ronka, who had betrayed her group and intended to escape alone with Stefan. Ronka just kept quiet without answering her. In a room, Kama showed her jealousy in front of Stefan after her meeting with Ronka. In the hospital area, Lieutenant Cobra began to get weaker. He did not want to trouble his wife. While crying, he begged to leave there immediately. But his wife could not leave him. Bombs began to be launched throughout the Wilanowska area, a sign that they were completely trapped from the siege of German army troops. Stefan and the others began to prepare to shoot from the top of the building with a limited supply of ammunition. The German army or SS had entered the hospital area. German prisoners tried to help Lieutenant Cobra and the others so that they would not kill him. But his efforts were in vain. Lieutenant Cobra and his wife chose to commit suicide bombing. Back to the battle, the Germans began to attack with Goliath tanks. Continued to advance towards the building. Impossible to take out with bullets, they were forced to launch the Spider as the ultimate weapon until they succeeded in destroying it. The German army mobilized its troops even more, continuing to attack the building area. Stefan and the others tried hard to repel them. It seemed that the German soldiers blindly continued to attack, until the rebels ran out of ammunition. Beksa's girlfriend Hua was hit by a bullet. Beksa wanted to help her, but was held back because it was too dangerous. It finally got to the point where the rebels couldn't fire a bullet when they saw the Germans carrying prisoners as shields in mission to cripple opponents. Conditions are getting squeezed. Seeing Gorel about to raise the flag of surrender, Stefan immediately grabbed it. Gorel almost killed Stefan. The commander immediately broke it up and told him to keep moving. Tension and fear began to smell the scent of death. Rhythm of the heartbeat was already chaotic. Seeing that everyone was desperate, Stefan decided to lead the troops to escape towards the river. They all ran downstairs, while Gorel chose to end his life. While carrying a shovel, Stefan ran and hit the target. Others began to attack, but were shot one by one. Kama was shot by a tank. Kama's condition was terrible. At the end of her life, she told Stefan to immediately catch up with Ronka in the hospital. Beksa was apparently still alive. He tried to help Stefan by distracting the German soldiers. Beksa was slowly killed, trampled to death. Stefan continues to run from there. Inside the hospital, Ronka hides items related to the rebels, then sits on them. Not long after, German soldiers come to Ronka. At night, Stefan looks for Ronka inside the hospital that has begun to burn. After arriving, upstairs he is presented with a gruesome sight. A pile of corpses is clearly displayed in front of him. From behind, German soldiers who were once prisoners found Stefan, who was pointing a gun in his mouth. He chose to let Stefan live. Stefan walks unsteadily through the rows of corpses that lie in the middle of the road, towards the river, then swims to the other side. Unexpectedly, it turns out that Ronka is already there. Until finally they survive where they first met. And the movie ends. So what do you think about this movie? If you like it, please click like and leave a comment for this video. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a video from Allo Recaps. See you next video.